welcome. This is a monthly Concur webinar that we're going to do. We're kicking it off for January. So today's topic is going to be invoice and the AP automation with SAP Business ByDesign with Concur. We want to show you what it's like from the submission, the creation, the approval of an invoice, and how that integrates with the FI posting with Business ByDesign. So it's a Phoenix app that we have that's integrated. So we'll walk you through that process. If you have any questions, please, answer anytime you have a question, just please go ahead and ask. And so today, just a little bit of housekeeping things before we start. So after today, everyone's going to receive a link for today's presentation and the copy of this PowerPoint. So you don't really need to take notes. Just kind of sit back and just kind of watch, observe, ask questions as we go through it. Asif and myself, he'll introduce himself in a moment. We'll field any of your questions you have. You can put it in the chat or just freely ask as you go through it. And we're happy to continue any of those discussions, even afterwards, even after the call. And then after this, you'll also receive another link for more registrations, because we're going to continue to do this for the remainder of the year, every month. And we're looking for content, discussions, and we work with SAP Concur, the partner team, to come up with all various creative ideas to showcase the power of Concur and how it integrates and how user-friendly this tool truly is. So today, we're going to do some introductions. I always like to show what's called a configuration relationship diagram. For those of you who know me in the past, even when I've done trainings before, it's a nice correlation, high-level view, if you will, of how your site is configured. It doesn't really matter truly the industry. It could be public sector, it could be finance. It doesn't really matter, but it's a schematic way of the way your system truly gets configured correctly as it relates to Concur standards. We'll go over invoice capture, what that is. It's the optical character recognition. And there's two types. There's invoice, there's client managed and Concur managed. And we'll talk about the differential, why do one pick the other versus the other. And then we'll demonstrate the creation, the approving, and processing of an invoice, in addition of using invoice capture. And then lastly, this is where Asif I'll pass the torch to him, and he's going to show you the posting as it relates to the financial integration. So just before we start, a little bit about Phoenix Business Consulting. So we're a premier provider of SAP products, and Concur is one of those, and all the various different consulting services. So we have just a really wide range of services that we provide, and we just celebrated our 27th year of being in business. So that's quite a remarkable feat, and we're very proud of that. So our focus is in the public sector, along with commercial enterprise businesses. Here are some of the global office locations that Phoenix Business Consulting is located all over the world, just to give you a visual. And then lastly this is what we're really proud of, is we are a gold SAP partner, and we can deliver all the suites products, and we have a very, very strong presence in the US and globally. And all of our consultants, not necessarily just Concur consultants, but all our consultants have at least 10 years plus experience. And that's all the various different products. And as you can see right over here, we're going to focus on SAP Concur. So introductions, you're talking to me. I'm David Szymanski. I'm the Concur project lead for Phoenix Business Consulting, specializing in Concur implementations. And I'm located in Detroit, Michigan, on the Eastern time zone. And I'm a former Concur employee, been with Concur actually 15 plus years. And now we have a very esteemed team within Phoenix that specializes specifically on the Concur implementations. And then Asif, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Asif Raj. I take care of SAP Business by Design and all the other integrations and custom development activities with respect to all the SAP systems. I have about 20 plus years in SAP ecosystem and think I have about 5 plus years I was working with SAP itself during the development of this product. I'm located in Dallas, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. Okay, so going to the intro this is what we call a configuration relationship diagram. Before you do anything, before you do invoice, before you do expense, before you do request, any configurational thing within Concur has to follow a certain global template. And it all starts with you, right here is the user. You have to be in the system. You have to have a role that's assigned to you to do certain functionalities within Concur. And then these orange boxes here is a one-to-one relationship to you as the user. In other words, you can only be and have one ledger. Concur, we can build multiple ledgers, we can build a hierarchical level of a ledger, but you can only reside in one ledger. You can't be in two, you can only be in one. So it's a one-to-one relationship, one ledger, one person, one country, one group. A localization is the language pack, and then one currency. The group is very powerful within Concur. The functionality of a group, sometimes people can get that mixed up with a policy. A group is, you have to be attached to a group to do certain types of functionality within Concur. Some clients may have small groups, some clients may have over 20 groups. It's the differential. What differentiates one group from another is the reasoning why you have multiple groups. How this correlates, it's nice to see a graph, but it's nice to also see how it correlates behind the scenes. So in the module itself, as an administrator, I want to show you, I'm going to pull up a user in here. And on the bottom of this screen, you're going to see the word expense and invoice settings. And this is a core product of Concur, meaning this is not configurable. We cannot change that. Some clients are just expense centric, some are both, some are just invoice. Technically, there's nothing prohibiting us from doing one or the other. Mostly it's expense first and then adding on other products, but technically we can, you can do both or one or invoice at the beginning. These red bars that you see here, this is the one-to-one relationship as I showed you on the graph. So here's the group. That's a required field. You must have a group. Invoice, as you can see, there's not a red bar here. Red means that it's a required field. It has to be there. Not so much for invoice. Not every customer or client or user, for that matter, will be in an invoice group. So this is an optional field, but you have to have an employee group. It's not an expense group, it's an employee group. And then invoice is what's going to drive the invoice functionality of anything to do within Concur. Here's the ledger. This little drop down, if there's multiple ledgers, you can see, you can build multiple ledgers or, a hierarchy type of ledger, meaning, if this was a billable, maybe yes or no. If it goes to one subset of GL count codes for answer yes, maybe it goes to another for at that answer is no. So that's a hierarchy of an account code. One currency is in red. Country of residence is a red required field. And then you have your cost objects. This is what we call a 4-level connected list or a multi-level list. One value drives the next value. So all of this that we see here essentially correlates to what you see at the top of here. It's a nice visual to show you just to see how it kind of gets built. And then from here, a lot of functionality takes place, such as it goes to the policy. And then within that policy, is you're going to receive very soon that has a workflow. And that's the authorizations. That's the approval of the routing in which you want your expense or invoice report to go through. Okay. Invoice capture. So what is invoice capture? So there's two kind of modules to think about. There's a client managed invoice capture, and then there's a Concur managed invoice capture. And all that really means it's OCR technology. That's the scanning capabilities that we have within invoice capture. What does it do? So for a client managed, it's uploading and scanning invoices, and you, the customer, you're responsible for uploading and scanning all those invoices into the system. There's data extraction, you can kind of customize that, but you essentially are taking control. You are in control of all the scanning capabilities, monitoring that and loading it into the system, versus Concur managed, which is essentially an automatic invoice upload. In other words, Concur automatically captures and processes all these invoices as they come in, and they may involve integrating with a company's email, a supplier portal, or other various different types of sources. They both go through OCR technology. That's part of the power of invoice capture, but there's client and then there's Concur managed. So truly the key differential or the key differences is the responsibility, who is doing what. So in the client managed world, the company is responsible for managing all the entire invoice processing, while in the Concur managed, Concur handles most of it. It all goes through the same OCR technology. So now, let me show you the end-to-end process of kind of putting all that together of what it really truly looks like. First thing is what we want to do is do invoice capture. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this screen over here. Now, invoice capture is a role that's assigned to you. You know, it's an invoice capture verifier. That's the role. As you can see here on the left-hand side, it's called applications. These are functionalities that you're able to do with the role that you have. Administration is the configurational or the functional design of the system, having the role that's assigned to you. And in this particular case, we have request, we have expense, and we have invoice. In other words, this is how your system gets configured, is the Concur or Phoenix is working inside here, building the functionality of that. Invoice capture lives over here on the left-hand side. So when you click inside invoice and you have that role assigned to you, you're going to see where it says invoice capture. You have other things too, processor, that's the AP processor, vendor managers, managing all your vendors, and payment manager is where you're making the payments and you see all the different visuals of the payments. Invoice capture is where now you, the client, are going to be able to scan and upload a batch. So let's say that a user went out, they created an invoice, you have this role, you're going to come over here to the right-hand side, and you want to upload a batch. It's as simple as you want to click Browse, and this is all the different formatting upload you can put in here. This is functionality, core functionality of Concur. So when you click Browse, you'll be able to select an invoice that you have saved, maybe to your desktop or you just saved. You want to click in it, and then you want to click Open. And then here to the right-hand side, you want to click Upload. It defaults to the policies. These are all things that get configured, but these are all defaults. So when you click Upload, it's uploading. And it goes through 4 stages, and it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes it could take minutes, just depends on the volume. Sometimes it could take, you know, there could be a delay. It could take an hour, but usually it's relatively quick. The goal is to get it to this verification stage. Right now it's in uploading. So it's uploading the documents. It's going through all the OCR technology. So this little refresh button here on the left-hand side keep on clicking this, eventually it will get to the verification. I prepared one in advance because I didn't want to have any delays. So the goal is to get to this verification stage. And then when you click in this little hyperlink here, when you click on that, this is where the OCR scanning capabilities take place. So everything that you see on the right-hand side that's highlighted in blue is how the OCR is scanning. So it's taking the vendor name, it's the address, the bill to, the ship to, the invoice number, all this information, it's scanning and it's building and creating the invoice. Quantity 10, 2, and 4, and it gives you the description of what is being scanned. As you can see here on the right-hand side, takes all this information and pre-populates it and creates the invoice for the user on the left-hand side. Now, sometimes things are not perfect. You know, sometimes if it said quantity 10, it said quantity 1 here, you as the person who's managing this will have the ability to make any updates and changes. Usually, I would say probably 97% of the time, it's not always perfect. It's always going to be accurate, but you want to validate and you want to confirm. So, for example, bubble wrapped spool 25 by 24, it puts the line description for you already. So you want to validate this. It's taking the shipping, the tax, subtotal, it's creating all this. And on the left-hand side, as you can see, it's pre-populating this information. Here's my shipping. And here's my tax. Here's my shipping and tax right in here. You, as the person, have a couple of assignments that you can do. You can assign this to a person. Right here, if I wanted to say, I'm just going to keep this blank, and I want to assign this to a user, I'm just typing in a couple of characters, and the system is smart enough to know who I want to assign it to. So if I want to assign it to this person, I'm going to put that person's name in there. The vendor information all pre-populates. You can make changes to it. You can view it. And if everything is good and everything is the way you want it to be, you can just go ahead and submit. Now, when you submit this, what it does, it creates the batch and it asks you this question. Are you sure you want to submit this batch? Submitting this batch, what will it do? It creates the invoice. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to click yes. And off it goes. Here's the other one that I literally just did a few moments ago. As you can see, it's back in that verification stage. So that proves how fast the OCR, takes place. I'm going to bring this over here. So now this person comes in and there's an email notification that goes off and they want to take that invoice that's been scanned, and this is the role that they have, and they are invoice user. So they're going to click right into here and they're going to see that creation of that invoice. I happen to have two of them in here, but I'm going to look at this one. So by that user clicking into the vendor name, everything is done. The guesswork is over with. Everything that was scanned in invoice capture pre-populated and created what we call, this is the header. This is the detailed information. You can see the vendor information's here, and everything that was pre-populated comes across in here. I could add more things, 1099, yes or no. I could say, I can indicate what I want to put in here. My cost objects, if I wanted those to copy and I wanted them to be read-only or modifiable, I can make any choices that I want inside of here. Now, I have a trained eye. I've seen this, I'm kind of used to invoice. I'm kind of used to what, the expectation is. And I did notice that over here, it says undefined. So it couldn't find the expense type. It identified the line item, it identified the quantity, the total, but it had a hard time identifying or couldn't identify the expense type. Now, what the system will do, it will learn from your behavior. The next time this happens, it will know that, hey, I selected an expense type. This will not happen, but sometimes it may do that. So by clicking this little box over here to the left-hand side, I can come over here and edit. Whoops, not edit. I want to go ahead and click both of these buttons here. And I want to choose the expense type. So these are preloaded expense types that I've built before, and whatever expense type would be appropriate, you can go ahead and put in here. So let's say it was software. And by clicking save, now it's going to take that expense type and it's going to concatenate all the information. In other words, it's going to take my cost objects, it's going to take my expense type, it's going to put all that information in one line item. As a user, you can do a couple of different things in here as well. You can do a distribution. Distribution is an allocation. I did notice this number 3 did not show up. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit again. Select my expense type, and then at the bottom right, I'm going to go ahead and click save. So distribution within invoice module is a little bit unique other than expense because there's different ways of doing it. You can click your distribution here. You can select the distribution or allocations. You can distribute by the amount or the percentage. Mostly it's the percentage. And now when you're adding, you can go ahead and add your cost objects with however you're going to distribute this based on your configuration. Sometimes, though, with invoice, that's labor intensive because with invoice, sometimes you have a long list. So in other words, you can take your distribution and you can import via downloading a template. So think about this. You're doing this all the time, and this is a very consistent pattern that you're always having. So instead of doing your expense types or make your distributions one at a time, you can download this template, keep it, and then upload that for your distributions or your allocations. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and submit this. Everything looks good. I'm satisfied with this. It got, assigned to me. I'm going to click submit. And then off it goes. It goes to the approver. The approver will get an email notification, and that's their cue to go into Concur. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to sign out for a second, and I'm going to sign back in as an approver. So now this approver is going to sign in. I got to go through the MFA process. And then their job is to look at required approvals. That's a role assignment that they have. So when they're going to go into required approvals, they're going to come to their homepage and they see here's invoice. This is purchase request. This is company bill statements, expense reports. So various different roles that you have. If you're an approver and you want to approve invoices, you're going to click right into here. This is that invoice that was just submitted as the workflow is. It's an automated workflow. It's going to route to that approver. And really the approver, what is the job of the approver? So best practices is ownership in validating and confirming things. So if this approver had reason to believe, you know what, I need to ask a question or I need to get more information, instead of approving this, I can just send this back to the user, clicking send back, put a comment why I'm sending it back, and then it starts the process all over again. I can approve it and I can forward it. Maybe I want another set of eyes to look at this. I just want another validation. So I'm going to approve this invoice, but I want to add another user to it. And then that user can continue go up the chain until it finally gets approved. Or in our case now, I'm going to go ahead and click approve. I validated, it's confirmed, everything looks like in alignment. I'm going to click approve. Okay, so now I just have this kind of prepared for us. So as the processor role does not get an email. It's a queue that's getting managed. And there could be hundreds in there, so they're managing this queue all day, every day. So when you are a processor, an AP processor, you're going to come over here on the left-hand side. This is the application. You're going to look at the word invoice. You have the role assigned to you as the processor. So you're going to click inside here. And what we need to do is we need to get this pushed through so Asif can take care of the financial integration. So as you can see here, it's in approval status called accounting review. We want to get that to payment pending. So the processor is going to click inside here, essentially looking at what's been created, what's been approved, same functionality. They can go ahead and approve this. They can send it to another approver. And I do want to mention this, and this applies to expense too, by the way. Sending things back and becoming a system of record is very important for reporting purposes and audits. So then you can identify patterns and trends of what's the reasoning that a processor would ever reject something. You can come up with reason, categories, and codes. So maybe we want to validate the logical systems. This is the reasoning. I would put a comment why I'm sending it back. And this is all configurable based on your business requirements. And then when I click OK, the end user will see the reasoning or the rationale reasoning why this is getting rejected or coming back. If I cancel that, I'm not sending it back. Okay, so I'm good with this. The total of this whole thing is $30,278.27. So we want to pay attention to that because this is where the integration part is going to come in very, very close. So I'm going to go ahead and click approve. All right, so we're going to switch gears for a second. I'm going to have Asif take the control. But before I do that, in order for the integration to take place, underneath the App Center, we have to have the Phoenix integrated app activated in expense or in invoice. And the financial integration, that gets enabled either in the groups for expense or it gets enabled in the workflow for invoice. That's a functionality that Concur or Phoenix, that when we're building the system, we would know where to activate that and how to get that configured. They're in two different places. One is for expense, one is for invoice. So our focus is Phoenix integrated app, and that's exactly what it says. This app, invoice app, automates the transfer. That's the key word, transfer of the vendor invoices created in SAP Concur that we just did, and now it works with Business ByDesign. That's the ERP. So I'm going to go ahead and Asif, you want to go ahead and take controls, and I'll let you do the financial piece.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, David.
Very welcome.
Could you? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen.
Yep.
Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So basically, we have the couple of invoices created in Concur, and they're approved, and they are now in status pending payment. So now you can transfer those invoices to the ERP system where you process your payments in most cases, and where you want your where the entire GL balances and GL accounts and entire financial data lives, and you want to make sure that these financial entries are posted properly into the GL so that you can do the financial reconciliation and year-end accounting or month-end accounting appropriately. Okay, so to do that, we have an app. We created an add-on solution, and the add-on solution is now integrated within the ERP system itself. So the screen I'm showing you, this screen is for ERP systems. SAP Business ByDesign, but the same thing also works with other ERP systems through SAP BTP as well. So I'm gonna go to, as you can see under Concur, I have these various what I call as work center views, and in each of these views, I could basically perform a regional functionality to extract data from Concur to maintain the mapping tables from the Concur employees and the employees in your ERP system, to maintain the mapping if there are any from the vendor IDs in Concur and this thing in ERP system, to maintain the GL accounts if they are different, to maintain expense types if they are different. We could do all kinds of things using this add-on solution. So I'm going to head over first to the configuration screen. This is a one-time configuration where you the ERP system. What kind of application do you want to look forward to? I'm going to download invoicing data, and I have some access credentials listed here that tells me to connect to a specific to our Phoenix's Concur account. In your case, you would have the different user ID and password generated for your account that will allow your ERP system to connect to your Concur installation. Okay, so once this is done and set up, you only need, this is only done once. Once this is done, then you could just schedule a background job that will download the data on a daily basis and post it into the ERP system. As simple as that. So I'm going to run a process. I'm going to go to Concur Invoices, and I'm going to run a process manually that will allow us to download the data from the Concur that we've just created and post it into the system. Okay, so now we're going to create a new one. Okay, and I'm simply going to select the first option, retrieve from web. Okay, so this will download. And now, as in the previous demo that you had seen from David, as invoices get fully approved and go into status pending payment, because the integration is active, they all get assigned to something called as a financial integration queue. And because everything is in that particular queue, the system will download the data from from those systems and store it into the and make sure that they are downloaded and stored into the ERP system. So this is the invoice. This is an older invoice that we had created earlier, but this is one of the invoices that I think was just created 22485. David, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And that is for the gross amount 30,278 27 USD. And that invoice contains 3 line items: Bubble Wrap, Canon Image Pro, and Razorlight Econ Studio Light kits. Okay, and it has been assigned to the specific. You can see the Concur GL accounts, etc. All of them have been downloaded into the system. Okay, now you can see that the status shows as inconsistent. So then let's take a look at the message log. Okay, so it tells me that it has a supplier ID mapping is not available and the company ID mapping is not available. So we can go fix that real quick. I'm going to create this company, and I'm going to create now usually this is already set up in the first time, but if you see this data coming in additionally, that means that we just need to do a little bit more mapping table in the system. Okay, my supplier ID is AOS 100, so I'm gonna go to this my vendor mapping and create a supplier ID 100501. Oops. Create a new entry. Active supplier. This is my supplier ID that's present in Concur. So you can actually have 2 different supplier IDs if you're running in 2 different systems. Normally you say, okay, keep everything same so that everything flows from one system to another and you don't have to worry about it too much. But in case the implementations are happening at a different time frame, you could maintain this list here. So you can see that I have my list created where I have stored the supplier ID, and once I've done it, then it will be used in all subsequent entries. Okay, I'm going to go back to Concur Invoices. This is where I downloaded the data from. Okay, and I'm going to simply click on this button called Check Consistency. Okay, so you can see that it's brought in the supplier IDs, and if I go to the message log, okay, so I'll see that I got the company ID. I think the cost center and GL accounts. There is still a couple of mapping I need to perform, but once that is done, I should be able to post these invoices into my ERP system. Okay, so these are just the mapping issues will keep on coming, but until we get the entire lists of companies, suppliers, GL accounts mapped into two systems correctly. But once it is downloaded, you should be able to post it. Once it is posted, it will go into the Concur as payment completed, and from there on, you can close that particular invoice and move on to the next tasks. That's it from my side. Thank you. David, go ahead.
Thank you, Asif. Yeah, thank you. Let me go ahead and share out my screen, and then we'll come to the conclusion of this and open it up for any questions you may have. So just as Asif was explaining, as it gets into the approval, it's going to come to this approval status as approved, and then the payment status now says pending the payment. That's the process. That's the integration that it's going to be going through. So it kind of, it starts from Concur, it integrates, and then ultimately the approval is pending payment to the vendor. Questions? Any questions you have regarding some of the processes that you saw and some of the integration? I do have a question here that came through in the chat. It's for Asif. Is what type of data needs to flow between Business ByDesign and Concur?
So we can download all the complete payment data, that is Concur invoices and Concur expenses. These are the two big documents that we can download into SAP Business ByDesign or any other ERP system of your choice. Once that is done, they are posted as further in the configuration. You have the option to choose how you want to process them. So for example, if there is an invoice in the system, when it goes to the ERP system, it could be processed as a supplier invoice, or if you know that the invoice is already processed and approved, you could directly create a payable entry in the system and make the payment out of there. So you could either, system will download both expenses and invoices, and it will be processed as invoices or payables or expense reports based on the choices in the configuration.
Okay, great. Thanks, Asif. And I had another question that came in through the chat. It's more Concur related, is how does Concur automate complex workflows? And that's a loaded question. It's a very good question. Invoice workflows they follow a predetermined rules and routing. In other words, workflows are already established, and then it's up to the business requirements to take that established workflow and fine-tune it to what the customer wants. And that could be a cost object workflow based on allocations, automatically routing to the appropriate approver, managing the receipt, the receipt notifications. So there's a lot of various different types of workflows. It's the creativity, and it is automated. Signing authorities, do you have enough signing authority to approve a certain invoice, or distributions, cost objects based upon the allocation is the automation and the routing. Essentially, if for those who don't know too much what a cost object workflow is, I'm sure we heard the terminology of it before, but think of it as someone submits an invoice and it goes to maybe 5 different cost object owners based upon maybe a project or a cost object. When that first approver approves that invoice or expense, for that matter, it will burst. It's going to burst to 5 different individual cost object owners based upon the allocation. Once those individuals approve that component that they're responsible for, not the entire invoice. So if there's an invoice, let's say for $500, and that bursts to a cost object approver, that approver is only approving $100. That's what they're responsible for. And then once all 5 of them finally approve it, then it will continue on routing. So cost object approver is always based upon the distribution or the allocation, and it will burst to as many different cost object owners automatically for that workflow. We are in the question stage. Those are 2 questions that came through the chat. If anybody has any questions that you just want to just, questions you can ask right now, that's no problem. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, because this is, some time out of your day, and we want to, have you understand a little bit more about Phoenix Consulting and how it works with Concur. As you can see, Concur is a very great tool, very user-friendly. If you have any questions, I put on here a little QR code. If you want to scan that, there's a little tiny survey, and then there's even questions or content that maybe you want for future webinars. Please go ahead and put that information in there. And I hope you found this informative, interactive, and if you do have questions, please go ahead and fill that out. If you don't, then I'll just give you your time back to your day, and I really appreciate everyone joining today. Thanks, everybody.